Today, we're diving into one of the most incredible and, frankly, one of the most controversial technologies out there, brain-computer interfaces. And I promise you, this is not science fiction anymore. This is happening right now. By the time we're done here, you are going to see your own thoughts in a completely new light. All right, let's jump in. I want you to just start with this thought experiment. Just imagine it. You can see the world. You can hear it. You can feel everything, but you can't move. You can't speak. You can't even scream. You are still completely you inside, but you're just trapped. For millions of people around the world, this isn't just some scary analogy. It's their day-to-day reality. Now, what if I told you that the key to escaping that nightmare is a wire? A tiny little thread, thinner than one of your hairs, woven directly into the electrified jelly of your brain. See, this is the worlds of BCIs. And the real question isn't just, hey, can we connect our brains to machines? Because, newsflash, we already can. The real question is what happens when that connection starts going both ways. So to get how we can hack the brain, you've got to first understand what it even is. And the wild part is, you, right now, you're running on electricity. Every single thought, every feeling, every memory, it's all just a giant storm of electrical signals. It's like this vast electric ocean in your head. And for the very first time in human history, we are finally learning how to read the waves. And this really gets at the incredible leap we've just made. I mean, for decades, trying to decode brain signals was kind of like standing in the parking lot of a giant stadium, trying to pick out just one person's conversation from inside. All you'd hear is a dull roar. That was the old way. Well, we're not in the parking lot anymore. Now, we've walked right into the stadium and we've put microphones right next to the individual neurons. We've gone from hearing a muddled noise to hearing the actual words. So here's the absolute crucial point. A BCI separates the driver from the hardware. Think about it. Your brain is the driver. Your body? That's the hardware, the car. So if the hardware breaks down, let's say from an accident that causes paralysis, the driver is still in there, right? Still trying to hit the gas, turn the wheel. A BCI basically gives that driver a brand new set of controls, one they can operate entirely with their mind. Let me tell you about a woman named Jan. She was paralyzed from the neck down. For years, she couldn't hold a fork, couldn't brush her own hair. Her brain was absolutely screaming the commands to move, but the signal just couldn't get through. So researchers did something radical. They implanted a tiny chip right into the part of her brain that controls movement. And then, this moment that just changes everything. They put a chocolate bar on the table. They told her to just think about moving her arm to grab it. And this robotic arm next to her moved. It grabbed the chocolate and it brought it to her mouth. For the very first time in history, a person had moved a physical object just by thinking. This proved that the idea of action could be totally separate from the body itself. But this miracle, it came with a huge catch. The chip needed a port drilled into her skull, with actual wires sticking out of her head. I mean, it was incredibly risky. And worse, over time, the brain does what it's supposed to do. It defends itself. It creates scar tissue around this foreign object, and that eventually muffles the signal until it just goes silent. It was an amazing but temporary miracle. We needed something better, something safer, something that would last. And, that need for a better way, well, that's what kicked off this whole new tech race, a race to build the perfect, permanent bridge between the human mind and the world of machines. So this basically shows you the two leading strategies right now. On one side, you've got Neuralink. They use this crazy robotic sewing machine to stitch these ultra-thin, flexible threads right into the brain. It's incredibly precise, yeah, but you still have to drill a hole in the skull. But then you've got Synchron, and they asked a brilliant question. Why break down the walls when you can just use the hallways? They actually thread their device, called a stentrode, through a blood vessel in the neck and just navigate it up into the brain's own vascular system. No drilling into the skull at all. This could be the iPhone moment for BCIs, turning complex brain surgery into a minimally invasive procedure. It's a game changer. Okay, as we start to get into what all this technology really means for our future, I just want to take a quick second and ask for your support. If you're getting something out of this explainer, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and maybe drop a comment. It honestly helps us make more deep dives just like this one, because this is where our story pivots from a heartwarming medical tale into something that feels a whole lot closer to a sci-fi thriller. See, everything we've talked about so far has been about read-only devices. They listen to your brain, they hear your commands, and they turn your intentions into actions. But what about the technology to write information back into your brain? Well, guess what? It already exists. And this is where the future gets very, very complicated, very, very fast.
So, writing on the soul, what does that even mean, to write to the brain? Well, it means sending information in, not just reading it out. It means we could create sensations, perceptions, maybe even desires directly onto our neural hardware.
And at its best, this is a beautiful, deeply human, restorative thing. I mean, just imagine someone with a prosthetic limb not just controlling a robotic hand, but actually feeling with it. They touch a warm cup of coffee, and the BCI literally writes the sensation of heat and texture directly into their brain. We're not just talking about restoring function anymore. We're talking about restoring the richness of human experience itself. But this takes us to a really unsettling place, a very deep question. If a device can write the sensation of heat, could it also write fear? If it can write texture, can it write desire? And this brings us to a creepy little concept that scientists call the illusion of will. And look, this is from a real case. This actually happened. During a procedure, a machine stimulated a patient's brain, and it caused their arm to move. When the doctor asked, "Hey, why'd you move your arm?" the patient didn't say the machine did it. They said, "I don't know, I just felt like moving it." Their brain literally made up a reason after the fact. It rationalized the action and claimed it as its own free choice. So, where does your will end and the machine's suggestion begin? This technology is moving out of the lab and into our lives way faster than you think. And it's forcing all of us to make some pretty fundamental choices, not just as people, but as a species. And the applications are just exploding. I mean, for people with conditions like ALS, people who've lost the ability to speak, new BCIs can decode the neural signals for speech at nearly 70 words per minute. That's almost the speed of natural conversation. It is literally giving a person their voice back. And that is unequivocally good. But what happens when this tech becomes a consumer product? The incentives start to change, don't they? You think your search history is personal? Imagine a corporation getting access to the firing patterns of your amygdala. That's the fear center of your brain. Imagine an algorithm knowing that you want a soda before you consciously do, just because it saw a tiny dopamine spike when you glanced at a logo. This is not about data privacy anymore. This is about neuro-privacy. It is the absolute final frontier of privacy. So here we are. We're standing at a massive fork in the road. Path number 1 leads to the cure. A noble quest to end unimaginable suffering, to fix what's broken, to liberate millions. But path number 2, that leads to the merge, combining our biological intelligence with AI, not to fix anything, but to enhance what isn't broken, evolving ourselves on a timeline of years, not millennia. Look, this technology is coming. The genie is not going back in the bottle. So I want you to try something for me, right now. Just wiggle your big toe. That split second, that invisible spark where a thought in your head became a physical motion in the world, that is one of the last true bits of magic in the universe. And we just figured out how to bottle it. The only question left is, who gets to decide what we do with it?